SHE can't even take care of herself, Raymond Vale said, his voice carrying across the courtroom like he had rehearsed it in a mirror. I sat at the respondent's table with my hands folded in my lap, pressing my thumbnail into my palm so hard it left a crescent mark. I did not look at him. I did not shake my head. I did not cry. Because Raymond had already told them crying meant instability. His attorney stood beside him with one hand on a thick folder. Your Honor, Mr. Vale is requesting temporary authority only because Amelia's condition has become dangerous. Dangerous. That word made two people in the back row whisper. Raymond lowered his chin, pretending it hurt him to say it. After her mother died, she stopped functioning. She forgets meals. She panics around strangers. She can't manage bills. She needs someone responsible. My attorney, Nora, slid one slim folder toward me under the table. The judge stopped writing. Then he looked up and said, You honestly thought no one would verify this? Raymond's attorney turned pale. And for the first time that morning, Raymond stopped performing. The courtroom went so quiet, I could hear the clerk's keyboard clicking. Raymond blinked once. What did you just say? The judge did not answer him right away. He looked down at the documents Raymond had filed, then at the attorney beside him, then back at Raymond like he was no longer seeing a worried stepfather. He was seeing a man who had miscalculated. Until that moment, everyone had been looking at me as if I were the problem. 24 years old, recently orphaned, diagnosed with panic disorder after a car accident, quiet enough for people to mistake silence for weakness. Raymond had counted on that. He had raised his voice behind closed doors and softened it in public. He had called my grief confusion. He had called my fear proof. And now, in front of a judge, he was asking the court to hand him control over my medical choices, my home, and the inheritance my mother left me. Nora touched the folder with 2 fingers, a signal we had agreed on. Do not react yet. Across the aisle, Raymond's attorney checked his phone again, but this time his hand shook. The judge picked up a printed sheet from his bench. Then he said, Mr. Vale, let's talk about the medical evaluation you submitted. 3 weeks earlier, I found Raymond packing my mother's silverware into cardboard boxes. He had written estate storage across the side in thick black marker, like the kitchen already belonged to someone else. What are you doing? I asked. Raymond did not turn around. Preserving valuables. That was Mom's wedding set. And now it's part of an estate you are not emotionally equipped to manage. I stood in the doorway while he wrapped another fork in newspaper. The house still smelled like my mother's lavender soap. Her mug was still beside the sink, but Raymond moved through her kitchen as if grief gave him permission to inventory everything. The house was left to me, I said. He finally looked at me. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes hardened. Amelia, grief makes people remember things the way they need to remember them. Before I could answer, he lifted a stack of envelopes from the counter. One had already been opened. That's my mail. It's probate correspondence, he said. Stressful information. I'm screening it so you don't spiral. I stepped forward. You don't get to screen my life. His smile disappeared. For 1 second, the Raymond everyone else saw was gone. Then his voice dropped. Do you remember the funeral? You were shaking so badly your aunt had to walk you outside. Half the town saw it. That was a panic attack. That was evidence. The word landed cold. That afternoon, I tried logging into my bank account and found my password had been changed. When I called the estate attorney my mother had used for years, the number was disconnected. Less than 5 minutes later, Raymond appeared in the hallway. Who are you calling? I gripped my phone. What do you know that? Because unstable people make desperate choices. The next morning, I met Nora Patel in a legal aid office behind the county courthouse. My mother's hospice nurse had slipped me her number after Raymond told visitors I needed supervision. Nora listened without interrupting. Then she opened her laptop. Emergency conservatorships move quickly, she said, especially when the petitioner submits medical support. My therapist would never say I'm incompetent. Nora's face changed. She turned the screen toward me. Then who wrote this evaluation? I arrived at the architecture office at 8:12 with a coffee in one hand and Nora's card in the other. Before I reached my desk, Daniel stepped out of the conference room. "Emilia," he said carefully, "can we talk for a minute?" HR was already inside. The blinds were half closed, but not enough. I could see two coworkers slow down near the glass wall, pretending to read the project board. Daniel would not meet my eyes. The HR director folded her hands on the table. "We received a call this morning from your stepfather." My stomach tightened. "Raymond called here. He said there's an active court matter regarding your ability to make decisions," she said. "He also forwarded documents." Daniel pushed a printed page toward me. It was Raymond's emergency petition. My name sat at the top, like a warning label. "He told you I shouldn't handle client budgets," I said. Daniel exhaled. "He said you lost a client deposit." "That never happened." I opened my laptop right there, logged into the project system, and pulled up the account history with shaking fingers. Every payment was reconciled. Every invoice was approved. No missing deposit. No late report. Daniel leaned closer, reading the screen. HR's expression shifted. "He also said you'd missed rent payments," she added. "I own my mother's house," I said. "There is no rent." For the first time, Daniel looked embarrassed instead of cautious. "He knew private medical details," he said quietly. He sounded credible. That was when I understood what Raymond had done. He was not only trying to convince a judge, he was making sure every person around me hesitated before believing me. By noon, Nora filed an objection and requested verification of every attachment Raymond had submitted. She told me over the phone, "I'm subpoenaing your therapist and bank records, but Emilia, the hearing is tomorrow. If he gets temporary authority first, he can freeze your accounts and remove you from that house while we fight it." When I got home, Raymond was in the driveway with Mrs. Keller and Mr. Boone from next door. He turned as if he had been expecting me. "She's having a hard time accepting help," he told them softly. I walked up the driveway. "Give me the estate folder." Raymond's eyebrows lifted. "This is exactly the paranoia I warned the court about." Mrs. Keller looked at me like she wanted to step back. Before I could answer, a car pulled to the curb. A process server got out, checked my name, and handed me the hearing notice. "Tomorrow morning." Raymond waited until the neighbors looked away. Then he leaned close enough that only I could hear him. "By this time tomorrow, every signature you need will go through me." My debit card declined at 7:18 the next morning. I stood on the front porch with my phone in one hand, watching the rideshare app flash payment failed in red letters. "That's impossible," I whispered. I opened my banking app. A banner stretched across the top of the screen, "Account under protective review." Raymond's car was gone from the driveway. He had left early for court. And somehow, he had already started acting like the judge had given him my life. My phone buzzed. "Nora." "Do not call the bank from the house," she said before I could speak, "and do not confront him." He froze my card. "I sent a driver. Get in, come straight here." At the courthouse, Raymond was waiting outside the hearing room with his attorney. He looked rested. I looked like someone who had spent the morning proving she was not helpless while being made helpless on purpose. His attorney approached Nora with a folder. "We can avoid testimony," he said. 6 months temporary conservatorship. Mr. Vale manages housing, medical appointments, and estate distributions. No public hearing necessary." Raymond gave me a soft, pitying smile. Nora did not take the folder. "You mean she signs away her objections before anyone checks your evidence?" The attorney's jaw tightened. Then Nora's phone buzzed. She stepped aside, read something, and her eyes sharpened. "What is it?" I asked. "Partial bank records," she said. "Estate transfers marked as home repairs, but several payments went to a private clinic." "I've never been to a private clinic." "I know." She scrolled again, then stopped. "And this therapist letter," she said. It uses your married name. I've never been married. Nora looked toward the clerk's desk. That mistake may be enough. She crossed the courtroom and handed the clerk a note with the medical license number from Raymond's evaluation. The clerk took the file and disappeared through a side door. Raymond's attorney saw it happen. He leaned toward Raymond and whispered fast. The hearing began anyway. Raymond testified first, calm and sorrowful. Emilia is unsafe alone, he said. She needs protection from her own decisions. The clerk returned with a printed verification report. The judge read it. His expression changed. Before Nora could stand for cross-examination, the judge raised one hand. Counsel, stop. We need to address this right now. Counsel, stop, the judge said again, sharper this time. We need to address this right now. Raymond's attorney froze, with one hand on his legal pad. Raymond looked between him and the bench. Your Honor. The judge lifted the printed verification report. Mr. Vale, the court contacted the therapist listed in your filing. Raymond's face twitched. Beside me, Nora stayed perfectly still. The therapist confirmed she did treat Ms. Hart for panic attacks after a car accident, the judge continued. She did not diagnose incapacity, she did not recommend conservatorship, and she did not sign the statement attached to your petition. A sound moved through the courtroom. Not loud, just enough. Raymond's attorney slowly turned his head toward him. I looked at Raymond for the first time that morning, really looked at him. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The judge kept going. The license number on this evaluation belongs to a retired psychiatrist in another county. The clinic address exists, but the department named in the report does not. Nora stood. Your Honor, we also have bank records showing estate transfers labeled as home repairs that were routed to that same clinic account. My client has never received treatment there. Raymond snapped. That's not. Do not interrupt, the judge said. Raymond stopped. Nora placed another document on the table. Mr. Vale changed Ms. Hart's banking access, intercepted probate mail, contacted her employer with false claims, and attempted to use those claims to establish a record of incompetence before this hearing. The judge looked at Raymond. Is there anything you wish to say before I rule on the emergency petition? Raymond's eyes shifted toward his attorney. His attorney did not help him. I finally spoke, my voice quieter than I expected. You used Mom's funeral against me. Raymond looked at me then, not like a worried stepfather, not like a protector, like a man who had been seen. You panicked in front of everyone, he said weakly. Because she was dead, I answered. No one in the courtroom moved. Nora's voice stayed steady. The trust required a full accounting within 30 days of Mrs. Hart's death. Mr. Vale needed conservatorship to delay that accounting, control Emilia's objections, and approve his own explanations for the missing money. The judge denied the emergency conservatorship on the record. He struck Raymond's medical attachments from consideration and referred the forged documents for investigation. Then he removed Raymond from all estate control and appointed an independent administrator before anyone left the room. Raymond's attorney asked for a recess. The judge said, "Your client may need separate counsel." That was when Raymond finally sat down. Not carefully, not proudly. He just dropped into the chair, as if his knees had stopped working. Outside the courtroom, Daniel called Nora and confirmed my job was secure. HR would document Raymond's interference. By the end of the week, 2 officials came to the house and collected the estate records Raymond had locked in the den. Mrs. Keller watched from her porch but did not wave. Raymond's attorney withdrew after the forgery referral became part of the record. The estate accounts were frozen, reviewed, and corrected where they could be. Several transfers were reversed. Raymond was ordered out of the property and barred from contacting me directly about the estate. 3 days later, he sent one message. I only panicked about money. Nora saved it for the investigator. Then I deleted his contact. The house did not feel peaceful right away. Some rooms still looked half-packed. Some drawers were empty where my mother's things had been moved. My panic attacks did not vanish just because a judge believed me. But they were mine again. Not evidence, not leverage, not a story Raymond could sell. Months later, I sat at my mother's kitchen table with the final estate folder open in front of me. The independent administrator's signature was on the last page. The house was mine. The trust was mine to manage. My doctors, my schedule. My decisions, my name. I picked up my mother's keys from the table and slid them onto my own keyring. Then I walked to the front door, turned the lock from the inside, and listened to the quiet settle around me. For the first time since my mother died, my life required no one else's approval.